Lionel. John's got a new book out. It's called Darkest Hour, the former mafia enforcer for John Gotti and the Gambino crime family. Did spend time in a Brazilian prison.
Brazilian? That's what it was?
That's what it was.
Okay.
I know. If you ask me to name the prisons I don't want to go to, Brazilian prisons.
Yeah.
Number 2, look at you. You're in great shape, aren't you? You did lose. You didn't need to lose weight, and you lost weight. Why is it that sit down, relax. The people that don't need to lose weight, you don't look like a guy who's worried about getting whacked to me ever, and you always have a nice tan. You can't deny. You can say whatever you want, baby. I got to tell you right now, you're a handsome guy. I'd have you play yourself in the movie if they were to make a movie.
Not Tom Hardy?
No. Yeah, well, maybe Tom Hardy would be pretty good. Who would you want? If they make a movie, you write Tom Hardy?
I like Tom Hardy.
Yeah, who doesn't? I mean, that would be great. Good to see you again.
You ever see him in Lawless? Good to see you also.
Which one is Lawless? I did see.
It's a Prohibition. They're in the...
The Brothers?
Yeah, the
Yes,
Brothers.
great movie.
Yeah, real good.
Great movie. I actually had to watch it twice because I couldn't understand what he was saying when the accent was so deep. He's a great actor. How's everything going?
All right, things good. This is, you know what? Let me just give a shout out. A good friend of mine is a Green Ranger, and his name is Jason David Frank. He's got a new movie out. He's a 8th degree black belt.
Oh, Jesus.
We're real good buddies. He's like a brother to me now. And,
yeah.
We're real close, and some of the things we were talking about is really the bullying stuff that we all relate to because of kids and what goes on in my past, and some of the stuff that these Gottis are doing with me is
bullying.
Well, they tried. I mean, it's almost Girl Scout. He's got a box of cookies he's running around selling. It's kind of laughable. Really.
No, but I have to be honest with you about something. I don't have any dealings with the mob whatsoever, and nothing with the Gottis at all.
Yeah.
But I'm still afraid of them. I don't want to be. I still feel like, even though John is long dead, I don't want to any of the other ones to have me. I feel like Victoria could have me killed if she wanted to.
I mean, listen.
Yeah.
She's the tougher one out of all of them.
Okay.
Junior just sells cookies now. I know. You'll see him in a skirt with a little green.
See that right there? Yeah. You're now you have no. Yeah, you're just.
Well, you got it because you know what? Honestly, I got to make a joke of it, make light of it, and really, that's what you have to do because. He's supposed to be a half-ass gangster in the past. And,
right.
The little minions he's got staying with them that are running around and acting like children, that's expected of them. They weren't street guys. They don't know any better. They're like little bitch kids, So to them, it's like a fantasy to run around and follow this clown. So when this behavior as an adult, is out in the media, you're supposed to have been the son of a guy that was well known to be the boss of a Gambino family.
Took over. I mean, the guy took over. He came in and took over.
So, at this point, he's got to be so embarrassed that he's behind the computer under fake names, running around calling me names for years now.
Right.
And then he's got these kids doing the same thing like children. So, going back to the bullying thing, so when people watch on Facebook, I really make light of it and make a joke of it. I chase them around and I answer to them, every so often after years I'll do it. I'll go at them for 2 weeks and then I'll stop again. Just to show kids that are being bullied on the internet or over, media, technology.
Right.
That you don't got to take it serious. Laugh at these people because they're intimidated of you. That's why they're doing it. They're insecure of you. There's a reason why they're doing it.
Let's give a kind of a little bit of a rehash for the people who had never heard John on the air before. I don't remember. I think might have been your buddy. Somebody contacted me once, said they got this guy. He was part of the family, and he's got this book, and I love that stuff. I'm from New York. I wanted to hear about it, and you came on and were a fantastic guest. I mean, the stuff that you were talking about and weren't afraid to say. Then the second time you were on the show, we found out more that you had ties like right here in the area. We had people locally getting mad at me, getting mad at you. It was great. I love the drama.
So I really don't like Bubba, so it really made me get close to you.
Oh, well, that's the one upside that he had.
Yeah, I was hoping the horse bit his hand off like he did to Duke Mandel. You remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember. Okay. So listen. So now, John. Now you grew up with the John Jr., correct? You guys were like best friends?
Correct.
Now, where do you mean? High school? Grade school?
High school.
High school.
We first met in high school.
And you remained friends up until when?
Well, listen, the word friends, we hung out, but I really wasn't his friend like everybody says.
So you weren't best friends?
Well, he was with me day and night, but that was my job.
To keep an eye on him.
To keep an eye on him, and I changed that lingo to babysitting him because of the way he behaves.
Right.
I started calling him a brat, and, guys in the mob, really, they do call him a brat, or guys who are still active.
And in his defense, if you will, he, like you said, he was the son of if you want to put it into royalty aspects, his father was the king at the time. You know what I mean? And when you're the king's son, you tend to get a little bit of spoiled. Yeah. I mean, that was.
Well, he took it to a lot of bit of spoiled.
Yeah, but
he's the kid in Mike. He's the kid in the park that takes the ball home because nobody chooses him.
Yeah,
and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
But you're a grown man at this time, and there's these shootings, the serious shootings that just happened in Broward County, and we talk about some of that stuff and the dangers of bullying and some of the kids that kill themselves. So at this point, people are watching. Take a step back, grow up, be a man, act like a man, and stop this nonsense.
Could he ever have a normal life if he wanted to? Because the story is, and again, I don't know him, but the story is that his mother didn't want him to have that life, and they weren't going to have him do it. But of course, if you're around it, and you're close with your father, you're going to follow in his footsteps. You're going to get into that sort of life. But then he says he didn't want it. And his father made him have that kind of life.
See, that's the storyline that he tries to sell to everybody.
Right.
His mother's nickname from the father was Butch. Okay, so that was the mother's name by the father because she was trying to be controlling.
Right.
She wanted him in that life. She pushed him, not the father. The father kept pushing him away. So when people are bad-mouthing, he bad-mouths his own father and blames his father for his life. That's completely not true. His father chased him from this life from when he was a kid. He drove him crazy. He did stupid things, and his father was worried that he was going to end up getting killed. He stayed with dumb friends. He killed a kid at the Silver Fox when he was a young kid.
Right.
He stabbed him from behind, and that's an open case. And
still open.
It's still open case, but now.
Why did he stab that guy?
Just because.
Argument.
It had nothing to do with him. He jumped in, and he was just again a brat, spoiled kid.
Yeah.
Not really tough. Obviously, he doesn't want to fight when the guy sees him face to face, and he sucker stabbed him, killed him. And
now, where were you for this? Were you there?
No,
or
I was away.
You were already gone.
All our friends were there.
Yeah.
So, in his 302s where he rats, and I bring the paperwork out, in 2005, he places all his friends there. He does what Gotti always does. He blames someone else to take the weight from. And some of the witnesses that drove him home and guys who were around, they're still around, and yet he's not convicted or charged with that murder, and it's an open murder investigation. So, these are the things that somebody does that has nothing to do with being a gangster. This is just a bratty kid since he's young that doesn't know how to change his ways. But this book that I'm doing now with Susan Pike is actually about guys that grow up in the street like myself and what happened to me particularly to go into the street life.
What happened? Give me an idea. What do we got? First of all, you're not Italian, right? You're Albanian?
No, Albanian.
And where is your family? Did they come over here from Albania?
Yeah, they came from Albania.
So you were
was a communist country.
immigrant parents.
Immigrant parents.
Who left the communist country to come here, give you a better life.
Yep.
Now you come here at how old? Or were you born here?
No, I was born.
Okay, you were born here.
Yeah, my family was born there. My dad and my grandparents and everybody. So.
And I would imagine there was language barrier.
Language barrier, and my father dropped out of school at a very young age. He lived
at work.
He didn't really like to work. My grandfather was a very hard worker. My father liked to gamble. He was on the streets. He lived down in Delancey and Rivington Street in Manhattan. It was a hub for like Vito Genovese and those guys, and he was around gangsters his whole life.
So he got in it before you got in.
Well, he was not to the extent I did. He was friendly with them, and he got in some trouble. He made the front page of the Daily News. Him, my uncle, and this other guy, Red Kelly, and a cop shot his friend Red Kelly at that incident, and they were front page guys in the Daily News. So as much as he underplays his role as involvement with the mob, he was involved, but just on a different level than me.
Okay, and then when's the first time you start getting involved?
I've been around them since I was 3 years old. My father brought me to clubs down in the Bronx with Luciano, who was Blackie. Charlie Luciano was a cousin of Lucky Luciano.
Okay.
So these guys were around, and they know me since I'm a baby. And
now that may sound to some people who are born in Florida like some sort of child abuse, but it's not. When you grow up in that area, there's a lot more of that than you think. I remember making deliveries for guys, not really knowing. I'm not delivering drugs, but I'm delivering racing forms or something like that. As a kid, hey, bring this down here for me. Well, you could have gotten in trouble for that, but I mean, it was a lot more common in certain neighborhoods.
It was a different time in life. And Lou Romano is a very good author, and he's writing a book, and it's called Area Codes, and it depends on where you're from and how you're going to grow up and what your experience and your environment is. And and one of the biggest things I'm talking about, especially with bullying and this book, is sometimes you have no choice of where you're living. You do have a choice, but you're pushed in a direction that is exciting and that looks like, and it's an adrenaline rush, which is big in my life, that is saying, hey, you only see the positive side of those lives until you're in that life.
Right.
And then you're crossing the line. You happen not to cross the line. When you become me and you cross the line and you go into jails and people are dying and there's victims, families contacting you, and reality hits as you're getting older. And you're reaching out like I did to have faith in God, and you start saying, what am I doing with my life? And you look back and say, what was some of the things that caused it? And in the book that Susan wrote about me, one of the things is a priest that was molesting and raping some of my friends.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, and, we went to St. Thomas Apostle. I wasn't baptized as a kid. My friends were. And Father Farrell was a predator. And, people say, well, this guy's a gangster. And here's where the line gets a little confused as a child for me. I see a corrupt cop. I see a priest that's molesting us and raping kids, and then I see a gangster who's treating us well.
Right.
So, which way you going? And, I headed towards the gangster who was my savior.
Yeah.
And
the guy who was bringing you away from the two guys that are supposed to be taking care of you.
Right.
And they're assaulting you.
Yeah, and they're assaulting. And, several of my friends were raped by this priest. So,
What about you? He didn't like you?
No, he did.
He did?
Liked me. He wanted to rape me, yes.
He did. Did you have any confrontations with him?
Yeah, plenty. Yeah. I was a victim. And I brought it out. I'm not ashamed of it. And one of the things...
You didn't do anything wrong.
I got to tell you the truth. I got to come in and try to help. You know what I do now, Mike, is I talk about kids, trying to help kids. I look at religion. I used to look at it in prison as a crutch.
Right.
And now I look at it different, that I'm alive to help some kids and help them with their faith and help them know that if you're from an environment like myself, that
you can get out of it. Yeah.
And you can do what you're doing. I mean, just what you said, you were involved as a kid in small levels of things, and you went in the right direction, changed your life. It was a life experience for you. There's nothing you could do whether you want to or not. Same with me. There's nothing you can do, but you can only go in a positive direction.
Sure, and help other kids. And they always say, if you help just one kid, think about that. That's a huge impact on one life. That kid you help could be the next Steve Jobs. You don't know what you don't know what you're doing.
Well, this is my and back to Gotti. When everybody says to me, this Gotti family and this nonsense, you'll go on pages that the Gotti's written over years of pages of me. This is childish. Think about the time, energy, negative energy that could be going towards helping children. Instead,
would you talk to him? Did you ever try to reach out to him?
I tried.
And he doesn't want to have anything to do with you?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I really don't want anything to do with a guy that lives his life on a negative note. A guy that, is in denial of, you're a cooperator.
Yeah.
You went in for Queen of the Day. You ratted. You gave up guys. And his own paperwork,
He
Mike,
still denies that?
No, he doesn't deny that. He just says he went in for a half hour, which was ridiculous. You know the life.
Right.
But besides that, he tried to open up the Bronx House of Detention, a jail to put his friends in while he was cooperating to die the way his father died and make a profit off it. And it's in his words, not me.
Right.
I mean, these are his words. You can't spin that stuff around. So don't exploit your father's name and then say, poor my daddy, he died in prison. Meanwhile, you're trying to open up a prison to kill guys and let them suffer and die like you claim you did. But then you turn around and blame your father for putting you in the life. Then you turn around, you back out, you're trying to make all kinds of money off your father's name. And, anybody, honestly, I love my father.
Yeah.
And everything you read in this book is, a lot of my life is due to the way my father raised me. And I don't have one qualm of what he did. He thought that was the best thing for me. So
yeah, it's interesting because I look back at my parents and my father, and he's great now. We have a great relationship, but when we were younger, we were apart. I didn't see him a lot, but I don't blame him for that because he had an odd family, and then before that, God knows what they had. So it's only about what you can change and what you learn from there. And then my father is a great father now and has been for years, and also I have a young sister who he was a great father to. So it's about what you can change and make out of yourself.
Well, yeah. Well, our environment, Mike, and wherever your father's environment was, like Mike Jacobs, my friend, we grew up together.
Mike's a bad guy.
Bad guy. He's a nice guy, and this is what life's about. He's like you. He's a nice guy, but he's a tough guy. Don't fool around with him. Don't try to take advantage of him. He grew up on Jamaica Avenue with me, along with George Catalano and Mike Catalano and different guys that grew up around the Gottis and know the real story. And the Jamaica Avenue guys, we grew up in an environment that we nickname our neighborhood Woodhaven, Death Haven, and we grew up in with gangs with 7 and 9, and this is what the book talks about: how we all grew up, how we were fighting, how the schools were, and the violence that we were subjected to. And back then it was racial, so it was the blacks against the whites and the Spanish against the blacks.
It really was. You didn't even have to dislike black people in the 70s and 80s, but if a fight came down, you were immediately on opposite sides.
Yeah, I had no choice. I have a lot of black friends that I grew up with. I still am very friendly with some of my friends that since we're kids we've been best friends.
Right.
And we all laugh about this because we knew there was untold rules that none of us could help at that time.
Right.
And it's not there was hatred. I think there was just the way my author puts it, Susan puts it. There was hatred in the world. It wasn't towards an individual like your society tries to put it towards. It's the same thing now here with that's going on with gun control and different aspects. There's no reason, in my opinion, a machine gun should be sold to anybody on the street. You're not killing a deer with a machine gun.
Well, you can kill a lot of deer with machine guns.
I think the only thing machine guns was somebody like me that was out there killing people.
What did you carry on a daily basis?
3 guns, usually.
3?
Yeah, always 3.
Yeah, one on the ankle?
Yeah, no, one in the jock strap, a 2-shot Derringer, a 32 or 38 revolver, and a 9mm. And I didn't like 9mm because they jammed on me once before, and I always kept that revolver just in case.
Just in case. All reliable.
Yeah.
Man, I have this book. This is John's book, Darkest Hour. And I have to tell you, I'm looking forward to reading this. Your life amazes me. But the most amazing thing is how you're as outspoken as you are, and yet you don't seem to live in any sort of fear of retaliation from anybody. I'm just saying, if I had you on the air talking about me, I would want to at least beat you up, or have somebody else do it because I'm not going to do it. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, and you are dealing with what is known as one of the most powerful families in the mafia, and yet you seem to be completely fearless.
Well, because the book is me growing up and being hurt on a constant basis.
Well, the book definitely tells your history, but it's known what your stance is, and you're not afraid to talk about John Jr. or anybody.
Well, John Jr. honestly at this point was chased out of the mafia. He was shelved, and
why wasn't he whacked, as you kids would say?
I got to tell you, that's something that at the time when I was still active and I was in Brazil penitentiaries, I was asking for his head.
Yeah.
And in 95, 96, I testify. They gave me a machine gun. And they asked me to kill him, his uncle, Pete Gotti. And
Pete asked you to kill his own?
No, I was going to kill Pete.
Oh, you were going to kill Pete?
Junior and his brother-in-law, Carmine.
Jesus Christ.
So if Gotti Sr., the history of the Gottis, if Gotti Sr. doesn't get convicted, he's getting killed. He's never making it till 1992.
Right.
He never gets out of jail. So, the hits on Gotti's, there was, at the time, everybody knows who his gas pipe was. And for the Lucchese family, one of the bosses that had a planned hit on Gotti also. The Genovese family had a planned hit on the Gotti's. Persico was a very aggressive boss.
Do you know if you're Gotti and you took over the way that you did by killing Castellano, do you know, though, that now there's immediately going to be a target on your head for the rest of your life?
Well, yeah, I think Gotti knew that, but Gotti was a different animal than his son. His son is nowhere near what Gotti Sr. was, and at least Gotti Sr., whether you liked him or not, he got respect on the street.
Yeah,
he was a gangster. This kid's not a gangster.
Maybe he didn't want to be a gangster.
Well, maybe he doesn't, but you got to change what you're doing because in the direction you're going, you're embarrassing. If you wanted anybody to believe in that last name going forward in history, what he's going to be known for is exactly what's going on.
What if it's just the opposite? What if it's more like what you're saying? If this kid was like, like you ever see Angels with Dirty Faces?
Sure,
okay.
James Cagney.
So James Cagney is a tough guy till the very end when they put him to death, but he takes the advice of the priest and he goes out like a coward so that all the kids are looking up to him. Are like, look at him, he was a coward at the end. So maybe John Jr. is like, I don't want to carry on the father's name. I didn't want to be a part of it. I don't want it to go on as some sort of royalty. Let it be known as what it is now.
Nah, because he's playing both ends.
Yeah.
And he's just a coward in general. Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong, and I've said this over and over again. I'm not one of those guys. I got stabbed up. I got battered, everything. And when I'm in prisons, did I cry? Yeah. When I was over the phone, did I cry? Yeah, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
He just puts a fake front out about himself that he's not able. And I think this is part of his envious of myself and jealousy. And besides, he looks a little bit like orangutan. But, listen, the guy doesn't know how to act like a gentleman or a man, really. He's not humble. He needs that, fake persona about himself that is not there. Public knows what he's about these days.
Yeah.
And he needs to look out and maybe look for God. And I'm not telling him to be, I don't go in church every day kneeling down, but I believe in faith. I believe that we owe it to the younger generation to come in and do the right thing and teach them something positive. When you keep spewing out negative and you got these little kids that are running around that are homeless and they're acting like little street girls, I mean, they don't know any better because they're not gangsters. They're not from the street. Their behavior pattern is, I guess, what it's supposed to be, acting like little broads. But, for men, that's supposed to be men of honor, of whatever, and his father's supposed to be the boss at one time. Have a little dignity, act like a gentleman, act like a man, stop talking like this.
What is the level of mob that exists today? Is it all back to being business and being on the down low? Yeah, it is. So it's happening. It's not, but it just, you don't hear about it as much because the right way to do it is to keep it on the down low.
Well, guys are still getting killed.
They only kill each other, it seems.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, you got some murders, and they're involving which is a little different these days with the mob. They're involving gang members to do work for them and kill for them. And one of the issues of killing is they learn one thing from Gotti and the way he was so public that he destroyed the mafia by being it. So, it's back to the Sicilian ways of being quiet, go to work, do not kill anybody unless it's something that's going to be very, very, very pointedly important, like hitting a boss or something. They're not going to allow it for somebody's ego anymore. Yeah, it's not going to work like that. And for now, anyway, until things change a little, build up again the way they used to be.
This is Johnny Alite, who is here. His book is called The Darkest Hour. I have to tell you, I thought the first time you came in here, you're one of the most interesting guys we ever had on the show.
Not no more?
No, still continuing to be one of the most interesting, but I'm saying from the first time, it was very interesting. I have a buddy in New York who is a media guy who does TV and his radio, and Lionel, his name is. He came in here and he said your appearance on this show was one of the best things he's ever heard because we have good conversations. But at the same time, now the effects that I have on my social media after you're on the show.
Oh yeah,
holy. So now I have reached out. You mentioned Duke's name earlier. I know Duke for years, and I have reached out to some of these people and said to them, I'm not endorsing anything that any of the guests say on the show for the most part. I'll tell you if I am. I'm interested in your story. I'll put goddamn Hitler on if we can get him in here because he's got a story to tell, okay? So I'm interested in the story. Here's a guy who is in the middle of it and has turned his life around. And now even every time I talk to you, you're more and more dedicated to helping kids, which really, by knowing a little bit about psychology, I really feel like you have completely turned things around. I mean, your willingness and your interest in helping kids comes from the fact that you had such a rough childhood and you don't want to see other kids go through that.
Well, Mike, I did a talk with an FBI agent for troubled kids at a police academy. I did a talk with Jason David Frank. We went to a karate expedition. We became an 8th degree black belt. And I met Chief Little from Toms River, New Jersey. Who was also, I think he was a 4th degree black belt. I don't want to be misquoted. Maybe he was even 6th. But what I try to tell these kids when I went to speak to people at Toms River is, I used to look down at these guys because I was
you thought you were above the law.
Against those guys. And then I look at these guys like Jason or Chief Little, and they're gentlemen, and that's what life's about. And the behavior, and this goes back, and I hate smashing and bashing Gotti because I'm trying to get through to his head one way or another that your behavior is so childish. And these are men. Follow these guys. Why don't you do some talks and help some of these kids so they don't become and suffer, but yet he's too selfish, egotistical to do that. And even on Facebook, when people say, John, it doesn't look good when you're going back at him like that. And I do it every couple of weeks for a reason.
Right.
The guy goes at it for 6 months. I'll give him a week or two of some of that just to say to him, you're not bullying me. So other kids see the reason why I'm doing it is, don't fear that. When someone's doing that to you day in and day out, and this guy pays guys to sue me. He pays guys to chase me. He pays guys to belittle me. And I look at him and say, you're not going to get anywhere with that. So you want to talk about sexual stuff because he does that. So I put a picture up with him in my lap, and I told him our relation's been over for 25 years. So,
when you say sexual stuff, what? About the molestation? About what?
Yeah, whatever he's
Things
talking
to embarrass
about.
you?
Nothing's going to embarrass me. I got to tell you. And he knows me. So there's nothing he could say. He tried to say, and this ain't about me and him, but in his eyes, this is just his ego that he's got to keep playing his game.
Yeah.
When you're talking about molestation and a priest and you're knocking me, don't knock me. Because there's kids that have been molested out there, who's been raped out there.
And you're blaming the victim.
And what he's doing is he's trying to knock me, but he's hurting kids that maybe not come out after this happened.
Right, sure, because if they see him mocking you, then they are embarrassed
and
to come out.
He's got 6 kids of his own, and he's got some serious issues with some of them.
Yeah.
And I don't bring that out. I don't talk about that, but yet he talks about my children here and there, and he has his answer is his minions are doing it. I didn't know.
Right.
Which he's bossing them and telling them to do whatever they're doing. Now these guys, like I said, they're not. No man acts like this. Go get a job, something like what you guys are doing, something legitimate. People look up to you guys, your station, you're well known, and now you're a journalist. You're a radio host. You're somebody that somebody says, hey, when this guy talks, he knows what he's saying. He's doing his research. He acts like a man. He goes home. These guys are not, I don't know what they are really. I mean, they're paid like PR guys, but not even paid, $100 a week.
Yeah.
They don't have kids, social lives, family. So I guess this behavior pattern.
Side note, this priest, he's dead now?
Yeah, he died.
I was saying.
Are
you upset you didn't get a chance to do it?
Actually, it's funny. In the book, we're going to explain that I wanted to do it. I was one of the guys, and some of the guys that did hurt this priest, because they did hurt him.
Oh, they did get to him?
They did get to him. They hurt him. They're regular guys, not a fist fight. And I want to tell you about being a man, that people are listening or kids are listening. 2 of my friends that did this never got into a fist fight in their life. They're the biggest gentlemen around, biggest men that I know, biggest tough guys. So this bull crap that kids think that you got to be out there fighting to be a man, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
And that's not a necessary requirement to be a man. So like in the Bronx Tale, it says you know what a real man is. He says somebody puts their pants on, goes to work.
Yeah,
and that's completely correct.
It is, and that movie really. And especially with De Niro being the one to say it in that movie, it makes you realize. It makes you realize. I have to tell you, after that, I didn't care about Mickey Mantle anymore.
No, it really resonates because you're opening your eyes. And, I said this before in interviews, Joel Osteen, and I'm not a big follower of Joel, but I haven't turned the TV on, and he's talking about looking through the front, windshield or looking through the back rearview mirror. And the rearview mirror, he says, is small for a reason, because don't go back in the past, go forward. And, I have a family, the Goddard family, that I'm very close to, a guy, Michael Stratton, who's the brother-in-law of Goddard. And I was involved in that murder of killing that man. And I'm very friendly with the family now. And, believe it or not, your props are to a guy like Michael Stratton, who also as a young kid was involved in murder, and it's in the book. And he helped me get back on my feet when I came home. I'm not ashamed to say certain things that I want kids to understand. I cried my eyes out, and Michael Stratton's one of the guys that picked me up when I came home.
Yeah.
And said, John, you could change your life. Don't let nobody make you live. And if anybody has any kind of reason to hate me, it's him. It's Frankie Steele, Bruce Goddard's brother. And these guys turn around and embrace me. And they're proud that I'm trying to help kids. And
that turned you around. So, that helps turn you around.
And I think that changes things. If, maybe Gotti one day can look in the mirror and say, I'm going to stop the hatred campaign. Because really, the hatred campaign, honestly, is because he hates himself.
Yeah.
I mean, that. Therapists will tell you that. When somebody's so obsessed with me to this point, it's obviously unhealthy. So
I don't know all the facts about everything, but you seem like a really genuine guy. This guy says that you're a complete liar. Do you know this guy, the guy who has the website? These are the guys that started attacking me right away when we had you on the show.
Well, here's what I say, Mike. George Anastasia is a well-known, documented New York Times best-selling author.
Right.
He didn't know me. He wrote about me when I was a gangster. He did some TV shows about me as a gangster, so he was well versed in me. And he does his journalism and how these people attack a guy like that, attack you. They attack the guy from Albania. They attack any journalist that wants to write about me or talk about me. And this kid, it doesn't write about me or talk about me because he's a journalist. He's just a flunky, little peon kid that Gotti pays $150 a week.
This is this Chris kid?
Chris, that's what. Yeah.
Chris, I believe we have him on the phone.
Yeah, that's why same thing. If you take a call from him, you'll see he behaves like the same thing.
Let me mediate. I
don't talk to him, so you.
I'll talk to him. Chris.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
Chris, what is your last name? I'm sorry, I know it was long and Greek sounding.
I'm actually half Greek, if that helps. My name is Chris Kasparoza, and Mike, thank you so much for having me on your show. And if you felt like you were attacked when people reached out to you, I hope you didn't take it that way. And if people did attack you, it wasn't me or people in my circle, it was other people. But
I didn't care. First of all, I'm not trying to win anybody's approval over. I like John, and I've never been afraid to say it. I believe that. I believe the stories that he told me. I've got no reason to think he's a liar, and he's never been one to run. If I said, hey, this guy, so he's calling out guys that live here in Tampa that are well within earshot of what I'm talking about. So at this point, I have no reason to disagree with anything that John said. And I don't know who Chris is other than the fact that he's communicated with me.
Why doesn't John Gotti Jr. speak up and call if he's so interested? And the same guy that's on the line.
I did open that up at that invitation because I had some of the people in what I believe to be the Gotti family tweeting at me, and I said, look, I'm not opposed to giving you your side of the story, but no one seems to want to speak. So, and although this time things turn around a little bit. Now, Chris, where do you fit into this? Explain to people who you are and why you fit into John's life.
Okay. For one thing, John and his immediate family, they're under an exclusivity deal with A&E right now for their docuseries. So even if he wants to come on your show, he's contractually obligated. And it was Angel Gotti, his sister, that reached out to you.
Okay.
Me, myself, I'm a producer, and I'm producing a docuseries with John Gotti called Witsec Mafia, which I wrote about to you in an email, exposing how so many informants, after testifying against their cohorts, are being released from prison by their handlers, and they're telling the judges that they're changed men. And then a number of these witnesses go back out and they commit new crimes against innocent civilians, in many cases with protection of rogue government handlers, as well as corrupt journalists and lawyers. And John Alite is one of the subjects being profiled in our series. And, I don't even really know where to begin because almost everything he said since he's been on the air has been a lie or a misrepresentation.
Well, did John Gotti Jr. sit down and have Queen of the Day with the government, the feds, in 2005? Yes or no? Did he sit down with them? It was called Queen of the Day, which means you're an informant. Did he do that?
Mike,
did he do that?
Wait, Chris, can you answer that?
Answer that question.
I mean, we'd all like to know that.
2005. Was he Queen of the Day and sit down with the government?
For me, and I would just hope that I would be able to get my point across in a couple of questions.
Well, hold on. I'll let you, Chris. I'm not lowering your volume. I'm not hanging up, but I would like this to be fair between the two of you. If I'm going to let you speak, I got to let John ask a question as well, and that's something that seems to be a pretty big deal, and disputed by both sides. Did John Jr. sit down with the FBI and turn informant the Queen of the Day?
He had one meeting.
So he was. Not forget. So
well,
the question is yes or no.
Let him answer. Go ahead, Chris.
He had one meeting, right? One meeting. That's it. And after that, he had 5 trials in under 4 years. And John Alite calls him a rat. He calls John Gotti a rat. John Alite testified against him and put him on death row in Tampa and tried to get him the death penalty. And he's calling people a rat. It's insanity. It's so ludicrous. Johnny Gotti is a tried man.
Chris, can you find one street guy, one mobster that'll speak up for your friend there, or you're the guy that pays you, and say he's not a rat? One street guy. The guy's an informant, 2005. That's it. He only sat down one time. Understand the rules of the mafia. You cannot sit down, cooperate, give information on every guy that's in prison and on the street and say he's not a rat. He's a rat. The guy's in
let him answer. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. Answer that.
Okay. So John had 5 trials in under 4 years, which is insanity.
So did Joe Messina. Joe Messina's a cooperator.
Well, let him answer.
A member of the Bonanno family, who testified he was a member of the Bonanno family, actually, named Dom Cicali, he testified at one of John's trials that the whole thing was a ruse, that the whole thing was a strategy approved by other crime bosses to get it around his case.
Hey,
okay?
kid, you don't know anything about the mob. He was chased. He was shelved. You sound ridiculous.
John Alite 3 years ago.
Listen, Chris.
An open challenge. There's one document where John Gotti mentions John Alite's name, or one other document of anything of John Alite being an informant. How about this? John A. Gotti put out an open challenge 3 years ago that he'll sign an affidavit. I spoke to him last night. He'll sign one today, right now, this morning, that he'll okay the government to release any document, any paperwork he has about his cooperation, anything in the world that they have on him.
Chris,
as long as Johnny
he's an informant, CI, and they don't write half the things down. We already know that. So stop the nonsense for the public that don't know any better. But gangsters know. The gangsters know, and you got. Let me talk.
Wait, hold on. Let me jump in real quick. The problem is that if you talk, listen, Chris, hold on 1 second. If you guys talk over each other, the audio knocks out the phone, so it's going to be unfair to you. So I can only have one of you go one at a time. Let John say something, or let Chris. Go ahead, Chris. I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And actually, what I'm hoping is, because Johnny refuses to answer my questions, is that I'm answering his question, and perhaps I can ask him a question, and we can go back and forth. But to finish on this point, John A. Gotti said he'll sign an affidavit today, on video. He'll do it today, that releasing letting the government release any paperwork they have on him concerning any potential cooperation or anything, any meetings he had with agents, anything. Will Johnny do the same? Because his sentencing minutes are sealed, and we know for a fact that he was a cooperator since at least November 1991, and he admitted under oath, under cross-examination, that he was meeting with FBI just throughout the 1990s. It's insanity.
All right, hold on. Let's go over to John. Did you meet? Were you an informant in the 90s?
No, it's ridiculous. So listen, here it is, Mike. This guy, you're going to...
One at a time, Chris, or you're going to get canceled out. It's going to sound unfair to you. Go ahead.
This guy's trying to act like he knows something about the mob. This is a kid that John, he spoos what he wants in the kid's ear. The kid runs around like a little girl. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's making excuses for Gotti because before Gotti was doing any kind of, this is his new excuse. He's tied up in a show. What was he doing the last 7 years that he wasn't talking to anybody? That's number one. Number two, Willie Boy Johnson did exactly what John Gotti Jr. did. He was an informant. He was meeting with guys, and that's a death penalty. That's exactly what John Gotti Jr. did. There's not one.
And you say, for the record, you did not do that like Chris is saying. You would not.
No, it's ridiculous. Listen, Mike, it doesn't matter what Chris says. If you're on the stand and his lawyers, that's the first thing they would have hammered home. Number one, they got all your paperwork, whatever's on. I'm not saying I didn't testify. He's making this a competition between me and John Gotti Jr. John Gotti Jr., I say a couple things. He's a rat. He's an informant 5 years before I testified. The rest of the mob knows that. Number one. Number two, he was shelved. That means kicked out of the mob. Number three, he sent a letter in to the prosecutors in 2006 and said that his life is in danger. The mob's going to kill him. They presented it. We didn't present it. The Gotti's attorneys presented it. That was the third thing. Fourth, he went on 60 Minutes, swore he was never an informant, swore that never happened. Then he got back on, he did a video of himself and says, okay, I was an informant, I had a weak moment. Then he switched that one up and he said, listen, I was just trying to game the FBI and trick them. Then he came back with a fifth thing. But what he didn't, what this kid Chris isn't saying, is he got caught on tapes in a double homicide with the Bonnie and Clyde murder. All of a sudden, on tape, and he has witnesses, they didn't charge him with it. The Silver Fox murder, one of the best witnesses against all of us guys, Kevin Bonner, drove John Gotti Jr. home after the Silver Fox murder with his girlfriend, took him, and while he admitted to the murder, they were there, and there's 6 witnesses that put him there. Gotti Jr. blamed that murder somewhere else. He's not being charged with unbelievable witnesses.
And you say that's because
he's an informant. Now, he could talk about these trials. These trials are nonsense. You go to trial, even if you lose the trial, you do what Joe Messina did, the boss of the Bonanno family. You come back through the back door and you get 3 years of time served because he's already working.
Right.
And the trial itself, there was only certain things they can use because when you're queen of the day, anything you say in that room can't be used against you. And also, during those 302s, what he has no knowledge of, when you walk in that room and you talk about A, B, C, D, and E, they may only write down about A. They don't write about B, C, D, and E. So this guy's an informant. If me, you, and 2 other guys and my friend Mike were in a room with John Gotti Jr., and we're sitting with him weekly after week, and we find out a month earlier he was talking to the FBI, Our next meeting that me, you, and Mike have is to kill John Gotti Jr. So this nonsense, this kid doesn't know anything about the mob.
Now, Chris,
this is just a dumb kid that John's feeding information. Has he met one guy that's active, John Gotti Jr.? Anybody he could talk to that'll speak up for him? Of course not. Every guy on the street, whether you're a cooperator or a guy that's active, wants to kill John Gotti Jr. Nobody wants nothing to do with the kid. I says, because he's not even man enough to come forward and say, hey, listen, I did cooperate. I want to change my life. I want to help kids. Instead, he wants to play like he's a hero. Last week, just what you said, he blamed his daddy for his life. And then at the same time, let's ask Chris about his John Gotti Jr. saying he wanted to open up the Bronx House of Detention to detain guys to die in prison like his father did with his money and his paperwork. These guys can spin this rhetoric all they want because this kid doesn't know anything or anything better. He doesn't know who Willie Boy Johnson is. He doesn't know who Gas Pipe is. He didn't sit at a cafe with any of us and discuss crimes, murders. He doesn't know anything that happened with Curtis Lewa. He doesn't know a thing. The kid's just like a little bitch.
Chris?
Yes. So if you'll notice there, John Alite didn't answer the challenge. Will he sign an affidavit to release all the government's paperwork on him because his sentencing minutes are sealed? We can't get.
All right, hold on. Let me ask. Would you be interested in
when John Gotti Jr. is man enough to sit in front of me with you, Mike, I'll sign anything he wants. But we want John in front of us. I don't want this little punk kid. This kid's a punk. This is everything I'm trying to teach kids about not being like is this kid.
That is kind of and Chris, I don't know what your background is, but when I want to deal with somebody, I want to deal with the guy, and I can understand why John was saying he's not interested in talking to you as much as he's been in talking to John Jr. John Alite says yes, he will do that if he has the opportunity to do that with John Jr., who also says he would do that. Why don't we have a big document signing party? Everybody get together and sign paperwork.
The guy's a coward. He won't come in front of TV in front of anybody. This is his whole life. He's always put somebody in front of him.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. Let me answer that.
Okay, so I'll pass that message along, right? But one of the reasons why...
Do you get paid by John Gotti Jr., just so everybody knows? Does John Gotti Jr. pay you?
You see how he's talking over me?
All right, we got to give Chris... I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead, Chris. I'll give you the opportunity to answer without... He didn't interrupt anybody else. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'd like to answer this, and then I'd like to ask Johnny Alite a question, if that's okay. So
no, it's not okay. John Gotti Jr. asked me a question.
Let him ask. He could ask me. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. So Johnny Alite is a fraud. He's masquerading that he was this big hitman. What happened was, after 4 trials, right, between, was it 2005 and 2007, when they couldn't convict John Gotti, out of desperation, because his defense team went through so many of the witnesses and discredited them, out of desperation, they indicted him in Tampa, not in New York, in another city that he'd never been to, based around the lives of John Alite, and he was a low-level drug dealer and a thug who testified that he beat his wife and did all these crazy, and threatened to rape women and did all these things, but he left that out of his book. So they built him up as this big hitman on the witness stand, and it didn't work. The jury saw through it. They laughed him off the stand, right? And he said before that George Anastasia is a best-selling author. George Anastasia is a longtime contributor for a website called ganglandnews.com. On the second page of Gotti's Rules, page 2, he refers to the owner of Gangland News, Jerry Capisci, as the dean of mob reporters in America. That's a quote, the dean of mob reporters. Jerry Capisci tore Alite apart in 2009, said his testimony was contradicted at almost every turn. Long story short, to answer this and move on, he was an embarrassment to the prosecutors who put him on the stand, okay? He was a fraud, was laughed at. Then a couple of years later, they acted like it never happened, and George Anastasia with some rogue FBI, mainly a guy named Dave Gentile out of Philadelphia,
Mike,
who was one of Alite's handlers.
Mike, let me handle it once.
All right, hold on. Give him a chance to answer some of those accusations.
Let me answer a couple of things.
Listen,
you talk. Let
me just say, it's a lot, Chris, so you can't let's just go back and forth a little bit.
Here's what I'm going to answer. Since I'm nobody, Mike,
I'll let you come back and answer. Let him just answer some of those allegations.
Since I'm nobody, I'm a low-level guy. Why does John Gotti Jr. do nothing but chase me for years with you guys, talking only about me? He writes articles mostly about me. Anything he does, hold on, I'm talking. Anything is about me. But he says I'm nobody, I'm not, I'm a punk. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to say it. Wait, I'm going to say it now. At my age, at 55, he won't last one. He won't last one round in a ring with me. And matter of fact, I like to go in just with wraps on, no gloves, just wraps, and I'll beat his head all over the ring to show everybody what kind of guy he is. Because he's a dog.
I believe we have our next punch out.
You're not even man enough. He's not even man enough to get on his radio. Stop that nonsense about you. He's got contract. This guy can't even rat with any kind of dignity. He does it on a sneak as an informant. Listen, Chris. You're a gopher that he pays $150 a day. You're not a journalist. You're some punk kid that follows George Anastasia around. You abused him at an auditorium where he did an unrelated talk at a lecture, and you took his microphone and give it back. You don't come on everybody's show. You chase after me out of I don't know what it is. You brought up sexual things. Wait, you brought up sexual things on radio shows. You asked me what I do in a bedroom. What does that have to? What kind of man are you? But if you want to know, I still tell you I'll take you in the bedroom with me. If you want to know.
All right. Hold on. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're a punk kid.
What he was saying before, right, about the cooperation. I just want to play you. I want to play you a tape.
You got to play. Now you got to play tapes. I'll come in with tapes.
What is a tape? What is a tape?
The early '90s.
What? Say it again.
His handler that I brought up, Dave Gentile, who's behind this whole hoax with his book, right? He says, John Alite says in his book that he met him in 2002, in his book with Anastasia, right? He testified that he met him, I think, in 1999 or 2000, somewhere that. This was him in an interview last year saying that he met him in...
Why do you keep talking about me? I'm talking about John Gotti and how you know him, what you know about the mob. You sound like... everything you say is just a switch and turn on a lie. It's ridiculous would even get on these shows and talk with you.
No, this is probably, we met in the early 90s.
Okay, so that's John Alite saying he met this agent in the early 90s.
Okay. I have to tell you, Chris, you there?
Yes.
Okay. I understand what you. I'm not blowing you off. What I'm saying is it's not. I could barely hear what that says, and you're not getting a full opportunity to give your side of what you're saying.
Bring John Gotti Jr. on.
But that really seems to be the only way that anything's ever going to get solved. Will there ever be, Chris? Will there ever be a chance where John and John will be able to sit down together?
Mike, listen.
Let me just ask him. Clearly, you have an inside to John Jr.
We'd like to interview John Alite for our docuseries Whitsec Mafia. If he'll sit in front of a camera and ask him some questions, if he'll sign the affidavit releasing all his government paperwork, maybe we can make something happen. Why don't
you instead of interviewing John, let John and John sit down together and let them talk to each other?
He's afraid to stand in front of me. That's
Is
why.
he though,
yeah,
Chris?
He's
could you get that done?
In front of me.
Could you get that? I mean, I would watch that. Who would not watch that?
The guy's a coward. Only what man acts like this?
Well, let's see. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you right now, as an outsider, you both brought up some good points. One is, if John Alite is a fraud and if he's no big deal, why do you guys spend so much time trying to, like, I don't go after people that are talking crap about me that I could care less if they don't know if they're wrong. But you guys seem to put a decent amount of effort into proving that he's a fraud. But the bottom line is, if John Jr. And John Alite
Mike,
get together and there's no disputing once the two of them are in the room together.
Let me ask you. Let me ask him two questions. Just two.
I'd like to ask some questions.
No, I want to ask you two questions.
We'll go question for question.
Yeah,
how about that? Hit one from him and one from you.
Chris, I want to ask you a question. When John Gotti Jr. was acting boss of the Gambino family, even though he didn't deserve the position, was that me sitting on the right-hand side of him having a cake? Hold on. Was that me sitting next to him having a cake with him? Was that me sitting having a cake with him when he signed the best man to my wedding? When he was the acting boss? Was that him? Yes or no? Was that him? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
You got chased.
I just asked. Listen, he talks like a child. Were you there? How old were you in 1991? You were in diapers, kid. So, listen. Listen. I'm going to tell you on the air like I tell most people. If I wasn't a different guy and you keep calling me a fraud, you know what I would have did to you? But I'm going to tell you something. Listen, your job...
Did we frisk John Alite before he came in here?
Yeah, your job is to be a flunky. I says, and you're doing a good job as a flunky and a gopher, but you don't answer a simple question. Was that John Gotti Jr. at my house 4 hours away while he was a boss? My son's birthday party at 1 year old also. I don't listen, and you're missing the other point. John Gotti Jr., after 1992, John Gotti Jr. was going to be a victim of ours. Not anything different. But while he was boss, we had to put up with the brat. You're missing the whole point. That's why the whole mob wants to kill him.
All right, what is your question, Chris?
Okay. How about this? John Alite, as you know, during our investigation for Woodseck Mafia, numerous members of your family came forward providing information on you.
Yeah, numerous message of my family came after you. So so we're gonna. My brother said he'll lie detector test with John Gotti Jr. Will he do it? Will John Gotti Jr. and Angel Gotti and yourself lie detector test with my brother? Stop trying to spin the truth.
Well, what
you want to? Do you want to lie detector test with my brother? Does Angel Gotti? Does John Gotti Jr. want to? Just answer that question. Do you want to do it with my brother? Want to see what the truth is?
Once, ask you to repeat it because you ramble on like a maniac. Can you repeat the question?
All right, let him ask his question. Go ahead, Chris. What is the question?
Will you lie detector test with my brother, with John Gotti Jr. and Angel Gotti? Yes or no?
So let me ask my question. Okay.
No.
Why
are you not answering that question?
Let him ask his question first. Go ahead. Ask your question, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. As you know, John, numerous members of your family came forward, right, including your mother and your brother, providing information on you. They reached out to us, but there are also other members of your family. One of these individuals who's been providing information on you is your son, Jimmy Alite. I'm not sure if you know that.
I'm going to tell you something. I told you this last time. You bring up my kids, I'm going to bring up John's kids. I'm going to bring up John's kids who got mental issues. Should I do that on the air? You want to bring up my children? Do you want to bring up my children?
I don't like anybody bringing up people's kids.
I keep telling you the same thing. I says, don't bring up my kids. Or I'll bring up your kids and his wife. I guess she's going to be the first one I'm subpoenaing during all this.
Chris, let's not talk about the kids. We agree on that. I don't want to talk about John's kids. Yeah, I don't want to talk about John's kids. I don't want to talk about John Alite's kids. Let's leave kids out of it. I got kids. I don't want any of that happening.
I got a different question then. You claim to be a changed man. You state that you're a motivational speaker for at-risk children. You drive your convertible. You're right there right now on the radio with a cigar in your mouth. You post pictures in fur coats. Meanwhile, you also secretly own homes in other people's names in New Jersey. One of them is at 116 Chestnut Street in Audubon. You want to put my
Chris? You want to put my address out? I'll sit in front of your house with a camera. What do you think? I don't have people who sit in front of your house. Don't be. Listen, I don't
understand what the question is. So I don't understand what the question is, Chris.
Everybody that wears a fur coat and has a cigar is doing bad stuff.
John
I don't understand.
Even though he secretly owns houses and a pizzeria and drives his thing, is committing welfare fraud. Right now, is collecting disability and.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say?
Chris, I'm not. That's not a question.
Like Gotti? That's Gotti telling him to say that stuff. So yeah. Here's the whole point, Mike. Let me finish.
Yeah. All right. Let me look. This is not going to go. This is not going to go, Chris. This is not having you on the phone and having John here is not benefiting you because you're getting drowned out and you clearly have some information that you would like to expose about John. I don't want to do a disservice to either one of you guys. The bottom line is you have a great opportunity as a producer or somebody who is putting together an event and contacts to John Gotti Jr. to possibly put together what could be one of the greatest mafia television events ever. To have him sit down with a guy.
The best event you can ever have is me busting John Jr.'s head in a ring.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Because
I would put that on.
He's a coward like he's always been. He got this kid in front of him now, like a little computer geek. And when we were on the street, it was me in front of him killing people and shooting people for Gotti. Gotti's never been a man ever. Even the way he blames his father for his life, he's not a man. And this little worm doesn't have a job. Ask him what he does for a living.
Chris, what do you do for a living?
I'm a producer on a docuseries.
What did you do? What do you do right now to get paid for a living? Because you're not getting paid for that. You don't get paid. The only thing you get paid is $100 a week, like a gopher. You never did a thing in your life. You chase George Anastasia around a gentleman, and you abuse him.
I don't need money to expose you. I'd expose a lowlife like you.
You don't even got a house. You don't even got $1. You want to talk? You homeless kid.
Are you currently on the Gotti payroll, Chris?
We're working on a docuseries together that's funded.
Okay, no, that's what I'm asking. I'm trying to give you an opportunity to answer that. So you have business together, but you are not currently getting a salary from him, are you?
I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't really get.
Okay, so you're lying again, professional, are you?
All right, listen to me. Listen to me. Let's move. Let me try. We obviously have to wrap this up. I can't talk for. It's 9:30 already. Chris, what are the options? John has put out two things. He'd be willing to sit down with John Jr. with cameras, in a forum where they both can say things to each other's face and nobody can hide. That'd be the only way to do it, man to man. Or in a more barbaric yet entertaining way, John Alite would be willing to fight John Jr. in what something to me sounds like something they would both want.
So let me answer that, okay? One, about a year ago, I think it was April 2016.
Do not look in your rearview mirror. It's smaller than your windshield. Look to the future. Forget about the past. What can we do now? What can I help facilitate you and I together?
This is part of now. So about a year ago, he put out a boxing challenge on Facebook and Instagram asking Gotti to fight him. And he said if Gotti wouldn't fight him, he'd fight me instead, right? So what happened after I emailed him to respond to that? He threatened to turn my email over to the authorities, to the FBI, to become an informant. Again, and by the way, his son was in jail. He said that before he got locked up, that every time he brought his friends around John Alite, his father, mysteriously they would start getting arrested. So John Alite, let me ask you, did you rat on your own son? Are you the reason why he's in jail right now?
I told you don't talk about my kids, but that's the third time you did it. So
that.
You can expect that I'm going to have a lot to say about John's sons. John's sons and John's daughters. You want that? You want me to talk about his 6 kids that 4 of them won't talk to him? One of them has a sexual issue. One has a mental issue. You want me to talk like that? Is that what you want on here, like a child? This is what I'm talking about, bullying.
You want to fight this guy?
This kid's a punk.
I know, but I'm saying, if you did want to fight him, I could put that together.
Oh, my God. Yeah, put that together. Him, I'd like to go with blindfolded. I rip his head off. This kid.
Chris, you guys can fight at the punch-out if you want. Chris.
Hey, Mike, so to answer the other thing about...
All right, well, answer that question. You want to get in a ring and fight with me, buddy?
Will you fight John? Would you fight John Alite at our punch-out in August?
Mike, I'm 6'3". Unfortunately,
that's good. 6'3". We're good that
John's
you're 6'3".
John's not 6'3". John, how tall are you? 5'11".
So I'm glad you're 6'3".
5'8".
So when I knock you down, hopefully you hit your head real good and you don't wake up.
Hey, all right, Chris. I for a matter of time, I have to go. It's 9:30 and I haven't played a commercial in over an hour. Now I'm gonna end up having to find a new job.
Yeah,
go get the Junior Gadget button from your friend.
I don't listen.
He's a new crime fighter.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't want to have any issues afterwards, Chris.
No, don't worry, but John's got a badge now. He's a crime fighter, Gotti. You didn't see the latest?
I don't.
Go open that prison he wants to open up and get guys locked up.
30 seconds. Just 30
Go,
seconds.
no. Here's what you got. You got the opportunity to get in the ring at 6'3", so I can break your jaw with that mouth you talk too much. I says, and this way I'll show everybody about bullying. I said, exactly the way you talk.
I would always take that opportunity if it was somebody I didn't like.
When you're man enough to act like a man, talk in front, or when Gotti wants to stand in front of me and talk, instead of getting a little puppet to do it for him, somebody will respect him. No one will respect the guy. Nobody respects the guy that hides day and night.
All right, let him
and
say.
He's on that computer.
Let him say goodbye. Chris, go ahead. I'll let you wrap it up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that because your rambles on. So, John, if it was like...
Why don't you take a ride out and get on a show, Rambles On? You're sitting home in your bedroom. I'm going to tell you,
he did offer to fly in here today.
That would have been...
I didn't think...
Why didn't you? Mike, I would have paid for it with
Listen,
I'm
not saying we can't do this
Mike,
again in a different form.
For him with my Social Security money. Right. I would have paid for this kid. In my convertible, I would have drove him. I ain't saying he would have made it out of the trunk. I would have drove him that way.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
So, Mike, let me finish before I'm thinking I'll get 10 seconds.
Please, before I get fired.
I can't get through the phone. Don't get so nervous.
Let him. Go ahead, Chris.
What I was saying is that if there was a Sammy Gravano, somebody who actually was a big shot.
Sammy will talk up. Sammy's got a lot to say for me and what John is. Sammy says Junior's a punk. So don't bring up Sammy's name.
So anyway, guy, what are you saying about, say if it was Sammy or what?
You will find hundreds of his lies exposed. Over 100 lies exposed at JohnnyLiteFacts.com proving that he's a fraud. And we're going to post, there are interviews on there of his brother. We posted the other day a conversation.
Relax. Take a deep breath so you don't stutter so much. Don't worry. No one can get through the phone to get you. I ain't got it. You're lucky. They don't have those cords like the old days, so I could strangle you with it.
Like Maury.
Yeah, Maury.
All right, listen to me. I'm going to JohnALiteFacts.com is Chris's website. I'm not trying to be one-sided. If everybody wants to go and read, the articles are on there. I looked at it last night. You can see what Chris is talking about. You can see about the documentary that they're doing. I'm not trying to shut you out, Chris. I definitely do need to wrap it up. I appreciate you being on the phone, and again, I'll say it's not very fair to you because you're on a compressed phone line. So when you guys talk over each other, and maybe he's a little nervous. He does have health issues. He said it on the show.
Yeah, he's got health.
Chris, keep in touch with me because we got things that we could do together. John Alite said he would sit in a room with you. John also said he would be willing to box you. He said he'd be sitting.
Go today, get an affidavit signed today, notarized, that you'll release your government paperwork, and I'll make something happen. Get it today.
Yeah, I know it'll make it happen. Listen, you can get on your knees and wash my shoes, too.
All right.
Get out of here, bum.
Chris, thank you. Thank you.
At court. Oh, my, what a loser.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
What a scumbag.
All right. I'm not going to let you sit.
Yeah, you're a tough guy on that phone, like most guys. Yeah, tough guy. What is that called when someone calls on those pay phones and they talk like real tough guy gangster?
Yeah.
Go eat your gorilla biscuits. When you see me, though, I says the first thing you do is call 911. But don't worry, I'm a changed man.
John, I have to tell you, I don't. When it comes down to it, if I can only go, it's hard to articulate what I'm trying to say. At the end of this, you're the one guy who is saying, I will meet you, I will fight you, I will answer your questions, I will do this. I don't like to deal with underlings. If I have a problem with you, I want to deal with you. And that seems to be the man way of doing things.
Well, Mike, it's very simple. Me and you are having a conversation right now. I'm going to say, 1 second, Mike. I'll be right back. I'm going to get the guy that's sweeping the floors outside.
Right.
We'll talk to him.
I don't want to talk to that guy.
Well, that's who we're talking
You're
to.
not going to talk to Spanish if we have a problem.
That sweeps floors for John.
Right.
He gives him $100. The guy lives in his mansion. He hides. There's very simple things. What I said. He signed the best man as me as my wedding. I'm in with his father in pictures. I was fooling around with his sister. I was in her wedding picture. He's at my house 4 hours from his house at my son's first birthday. The guys, from the minute the whole family weren't made to when they were bosses, I was there. I was their protector. I was their shooter. I was everything. We can bring guy after guy to testify. We can get Sammy Gravano to write that down for
right.
us. This kid's just a dumb kid that's listening to whatever John's spewing out.
Okay, he's clearly on the side of the Gotti family.
I mean, it's not even the thing. He's just a gopher kid,
But what I'm saying is that he doesn't. He's not making all this. He's not making all up. He's getting it from somebody else, and that somebody is probably John Jr.
Well, no, it's 100%. He admits on other radio shows. He says John pays him $150.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that he has a direct line to the guy.
Yeah.
If they really want to get stuff done, the only way to do it is to put the two of you together.
Mike, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Michael's sitting here. The whole Gotti family wrote a letter to the FBI, to Washington, D.C., to my judge in Tampa, Judge Bucklow. You guys can check. We're in Tampa.
Right.
To the prosecutor's office, say they fear for his life that I will kill him.
Yeah.
John Gotti Jr. I said to the government agencies that all contacted me, if I wanted to kill him, he'd be dead. My life has changed.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill him. I don't want to hurt him. I'm advocating for kids. I'm advocating away from this life. But when you have a guy like this guy talking about my children, and this is not the first time.
I don't like that.
They've threatened my children.
Yeah.
They've talked about my children. They went near my houses and my children. This is stuff that I keep saying. This is why I keep calling John a punk, a low-level guy, a bully. These are things, personal stuff. Don't cross those lines. If you want to talk about the mob stuff, go ahead.
You can't be flapped. You're an unflappable guy.
And he knows
so the
that.
Soft spot to get to you is to attack your kids, and I don't like that. And I admire more that you don't want to go after John's kids.
I've asked them
Keep
that
the kids
100
out of
times.
it.
Keep the kids out
of it. The kids didn't ask for any of this. They didn't want to be born in this kind of life.
Same with his wife, man. I don't got no issues. I kind of like his wife.
Right.
But, see how he mentioned about my ex-wife? My ex-wife just put a letter up contradicting everything he just said, that Gotti threatened my son, that if she didn't testify, that they were going to do something to my son. And so that, what is that crap?
Yeah.
And then he's talking about slapping women. Yeah, I did slap my ex-wife. I did say that as a kid. I'm not proud
You've
of
said that on the show before.
Yeah, I've said it. I don't
You're
hide
a different
this
guy
stuff.
than you
this
are
guy,
now.
Yeah, this guy, but John Gotti Jr. beats his wife.
Yeah.
I says, and he's not man enough to say, yeah, I've done that, I make a mistake. But he didn't slap her. I mean, he beats it, punches her. So when a guy's spooling this stuff out, I says, that's the whole point. Why won't he sit here with you and me? We're not talking about crimes from the past. We're having a conversation.
Listen, I'm not even trying to inject myself into this situation. It would be great for me if I get the two of you down here together. I would just like to go do it on pay-per-view.
John Gotti never been a man in his life. Yeah. He's always blamed somebody. Somebody's always got to be in front. So he went to the level, he had big-time gangsters around him. And then he went to this level. Homeless guys that are, getting $100 a week to be a do-boy. And that's not a man. This guy's not a man.
I fear more than you and more than John Gotti Jr. or Sr. is a little black lady that works here is going to yell at me for not playing commercials. I got to take a break. John, I'm telling you, my opinion of you before is the same as now. I like you. I think you're a stand-up guy. I think that when presented with information, you stand up to a challenge. You say, you don't hide from things. You're not denying your past. and you admit that you did some stuff wrong. And I do believe your interest in the future is to helping other people out. Hey, we all got a little couple side businesses
Mike,
the government doesn't need to know
changed,
about.
and this is honestly, without, if I haven't changed, honestly, that kid Chris, his body parts would have been all over. And Junior would be dead.
I can see it in your face.
I'm a changed guy. And I'm telling kids the same thing. Their job is, and this kid's job is by John Gotti Jr. is to make me slip back into what I used to do.
Right.
John's hoping I do hurt this kid or kill him.
Right.
And then he can get rid of me, and this kid he could give a crap about. He's just another guy he puts in front like he always does.
My favorite is there was a guy on Twitter who's constantly harassing me every day. I offered him $10,000 last year to fight me at our Punch-Out event, not like in the streets.
Yeah.
$10,000. And he can have it win or lose. And he didn't, and he wouldn't do it. So it always when it comes to the point, and they don't show up, then you kind of start to see the coward. Yeah.
Damien is he does celebrity boxing. He's a guy.
I know him. Yeah.
Okay, he offered me and him. He said that there should be about $500,000 take.
That would be a good.
He wouldn't do it.
Nah.
But I don't even want to go with gloves, to be honest with you. I just want to go with wraps.
Right. I know that's a legit anger that you have. Is that you don't want to? No. I get it. You don't want to. You want to hurt somebody. You're not there to win a boxing match.
Right.
This book is called Darkest Hour by John Alite, a guy who definitely has had an interesting life and is turning it around and is continuing to turn around and help people.
It's a trilogy, actually. There's going to be 2 more after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the next one I'll really get into Club Renegatis. So I'll be back.
It's great to see you. And thank you to Chris for calling in today. And, we'll see where that goes in the future. We got to take a break. It's the Mike Calta Show. It's 102.5 The Bone.
The Mike Calta Show on 102.5 The Bone. Now, another traffic update.
Brought to you by Wawa. Heads up if you have to head over to Orlando right now. There's a